Hello and welcome to another game of Beyond All Reason. Today we're back on Supreme Isthmus, and as requested by a gentleman on Reddit, we are going to be looking at ephemera on the sea lane. Now the one thing I will say is this is faction dependent, so with most build orders you can substitute the Cortex commander for the Armada commander and it won't make much of a difference. Now the reason I say that is because Cortex I favour much more on open sea lane maps, such as Supreme Isthmus. I would consider this open. And then Armada I much prefer on the closed sea maps. So maps with quite a few obstacles in the middle. Now one other thing that I will note is it does depend on your allies around you. So from this player, at the start of the game, you do want to ask for a con and a resbot. And then from this player, you want to ask for a transport and a scout. One thing I will note is if you can get a fighter from this player, it is actually going to make your life much easier. We'll get onto why that is important in a minute. But first off, the actual build order itself, you want to go 2 metal extractors into a wind turbine, a metal extractor into another wind turbine. Now from here, you could go 2 wind turbines, but as you can see, the wind has tanked quite a bit. So he's not really going to be able to make another wind turbine, so he's got to go into a solar. Now the reason you make so much energy, because naval units are not very energy dense, they are more metal dense, is for the light laser tower. Now, spawning from this position, you are going to make a bot lab or a hover lab almost every single time. And what some players will do is they will send ticks down through here and they will leak up into your area, which is something that the light laser tower is going to do to protect your metal extractors. The commander is going to be over here, so he's not going to be able to deal with any ticks or any run-bys, and that's why that light laser tower is so important. 2 of these wind turbines are going to be handed off to the air player, which is standard, and it's going to help pay for the scouts and the transport. Occasionally this player will ask for metal. If so, it's best just to give him a little bit of metal for the con and the resbot. Now the resbot, when it comes out, is going to immediately eat these rocks, and then it's going to start eating trees, and that's going to be most of your energy production. And the con is going to immediately go and build this metal. Now this build does vary, depend on when you receive these units, so just bear that in mind. But almost all the time, the commander is going to walk down here, is going to make 1 tidal generator straight into the lab. As you can see there, he's shared 217 metal with Brevis, so he has paid for those units. Now as soon as the transport comes out, you want to grab the construction bot and take it over to here. And the scout is going to come down here and try and secure this area. Now the reason being is you want this island here. Now I believe with a recent update, that metal spot is now gone, so there's only 2 on here, but that is still going to make a massive difference. As far as the queue goes, you want 1 construction ship into a missile ship, back into a construction ship, then you're going to want to build 3 frigates, a sub, a destroyer, and then another frigate, as you can see there. The reason being with this is the first construction bot is going to come out and it's going to start building some of these mexes. The missile corvette is immediately going to come down here and prevents this player from flying his commander over to claim this spot. Now the reason the scout is used is to detect any other either missile boats or fighters that are going to come down here and try and intercept his own commander, because it's essentially a fight over this spot. The second constructor is immediately going to start building these 2 mexes, and he's actually going to come down here and steal this mex. Now, one thing I will say is it is a good idea to build a radar somewhere in between, and that's simply to detect for run-bys or any fighters that are trying to wrap around. Now the reason he's going for a submarine is because in this matchup, frigates are king. So massing frigates is the standard way to go, and they do not actually hit submarines. So if your opponent is going to go only frigates, the sub can come down and deal a lot of damage. It can certainly take out this mechs at least pretty much all the time. Now the reasons being that I prefer core over armada on these open fields is because I believe their ships are just better. So you've got the frigate, which is an absolute fantastic unit, and I believe it counters almost everything except submarines of both factions. Now the reason being is because they are so fast. Now frigates, as you can see, 83 speed, and it is all about kiting in this matchup. There we go, there's the missile corvette taking out the first scout. Now, with the naval units, for both sides, they actually do not have direct fire weapons, so it is possible for them to miss. And the reason I say kiting is the name of the game is because while you're kiting away from your opponents, your rounds are going to hit almost all the time, and their rounds are actually going to fall short. So they're not going to do any damage to you. And having the fastest units for that is essential. At the same time, with frigates, if the opponent is, say, building destroyers, or the LSORs, which are the Armada version, which are actually still slower, which is normally you would imagine the Armada unit to be faster, but it is not. Then the frigates are going to be able to keep up with that speed advantage, and they are still going to be dealing damage. There's the radar, as I mentioned, and the missile boat, which is escorting the commander over. Oh, excuse me. So once the commander's landed, he's going to be relatively safe. He's going to build the mexes. He's also going to build either 2 light laser towers and a, there we go, the anti-air, or he's just going to build the anti-air. The reason I say 2 light laser towers at the top is because it can actually prevent commanders from walking up here. The missile boat's going to immediately come down here. With the missile boat, it does have 750 range. So if you're hugging this coast here, you can actually hit that mechs. And if you're hugging this coast here, you can also hit that mechs. As you can see here, he's immediately going to build walls to try and prevent that, which is a fantastic play. Now, unfortunately, the first sub coming out is a little bit later than the opponent's sub. But at the same time, he's immediately rushed out a skater. Instead of sending it over here to try and intercept the comm, because he knows the comm's already landed, he's going to try and intercept the construction ship, and he's actually going to get it. Now this is a fantastic trade for him. I expect him to also get this radar tower here. Yep. And then he's going to get out of dodge. As you can see, the frigate has come down here to protect the herring. I would prefer for you to leave the frigate down here to protect the constructor in your games, and then to rotate it over towards the herring after you have finished the production of the metal extractor. Now the reason being I prefer core in pretty much every single situation on this map is because not only does the frigate win above sea, but below sea I believe the orcas are just superior. Now when it comes to submarines, they are not direct fire. Ooh. As you can see here, he's trying to move his commander down, but the skater is going to try and prevent that. Now I understand why the frigate was there, to try and ward off the skater so that he can get his commander down to actually deal damage. Now this is something I see him do absolutely every single game. So he's going to walk his commander up here, he's going to degun these metal extractors, and he's going to force a reaction. Now back onto the sub battles. As you can see, it takes 3 rounds from an orca to kill an eel. However, with the bonus of flanking, it only takes 2, which is absolutely massive. As you can see from the eel, it takes 4 shots to kill an orca. Doesn't seem like much, but when you're putting your submarines in a circular motion to try and dodge as many of the other submarine shots as possible, it is a massive deal. Now Ephemera has come into land with his commander, and he's going to be dealing some damage. Another thing that I would recommend is once you've killed these 3 mexes, place an anti-air tower. As you can see, almost every single time the enemy will bring their commander over via transport. And sometimes, when you get lucky, the anti-air tower can snipe the transporters that's coming in and give you a free comm kill. Now that the commander's rotated over, he's immediately going to pick up and he's going to go back to the safety of his island. This forces a massive reaction. So as you can see, the comm normally sits in this area to deal damage against riptides, to reclaim anything in this area, and to assist the shipyard when needed. Now with the comm distracted over here, the shipyard has very little build power, and there is not the threat of the commander walking up onto here and degunning your fleet. Not only that, but it does take a lot more actions per minute when you're reacting to something than when you're actually doing something on the aggressive side. Now from here, he's going to make riptides, and he's going to make one destroyer, and he's occasionally going to put a missile boat in that mix. I believe 3 to 1 is it's a pretty good sort of unit composition. I would prefer 4. As you can see from here, on the other side, this commander has come in via a transport and immediately gone for that player and eliminated him from the game. It is something that you could definitely think about. If you are, say, winning quite handily on the ocean, you can pick your commander up. You can actually fly him straight into the base and control him to explode him. Now, the explosion, when you do it manually, it does have a larger radius and deals more damage, but you can essentially use it as a suicide commander, and you can take a player out of the game straight away. So if your opponent here sort of gives up on the sea, reclaims the lab, and just goes for a land economy, you can just straight up drop your commander in it. Now, the reason I say this is so important is because at the end of the day, more stuff beats less stuff. Even if you do have it countered, when it comes to the frigates, more frigates will just overwhelm. Now, if we take a quick look, so I'm just going to pause it quickly, and we count up the actual metal that he's got. He's got 3 over here. He's got 10 in total, which is giving him 23 metal per second. However, on the enemy side, he's got these 3, he's got these 3, and he actually cannot hold these metals. So he's only receiving 12. That is a massive, massive difference. Normally this player will start upgrading first, as you can see, and he will actually have more upgraded... Okay, I don't quite know what's going on there. He will actually have more... Okay, it looks like 2 comms, because I know the red commander did come down. Looks like the red commander's produced metal extractors on there and just handed them over. It's a bit of a weird situation. But he has more metal on the surface, so getting that T2 is more important. However, at the same time, you can use your transport to get the T2 from your backline player, upgrade these mexes and that one, but then you can also upgrade these mexes as long as you have this island. And that's another reason why it's so important, because when it comes to the naval battle, I wouldn't recommend going T2 unless you have actually pushed your enemy off of the sea. As for economy wise, it is completely dependent on how you're playing and how it is going, but I would recommend a land economy. Now with the construction turrets, you can actually pick them up with the transport and move them around. So as long as you build construction turrets that are in range of your lab, at any point you can pick them up and move them if you see the situation getting dire. Another reason is if an enemy makes a run by, say he brings dolphins down here or frigates or something down here, you can pick the construction turrets up and move them out of range, which is particularly nice. Now I will say building a land economy is a better idea. I would prefer to see these energy converters, say, out here on the edge of the construction turret's range, along with the windmills, and it is a good idea to spread them out. A lot of people will swear by tidal generators. The problem being with this is they're just not as efficient as wind turbines. As you can see, 85 metal for 21 energy per second, whereas the wind turbines 37 metal for potentially up to 19. The energy storage is a fantastic idea anytime you're building any large number of wind turbines. As you can see, it's got quite a few built up, and that is to store energy while the wind is at its strongest, and then that will allow you to have a bit of a buffer zone if the wind does drop. Now then, if I go back into playing this game, as you can see here, oh, wrong button. As you can see here, the enemy is making quite a lot of eels. One thing I will say is with the destroyers, they actually will outrange the submarines, but their sonar is less than their range. So you do need to have a missile boat accompanying them. I would recommend putting your missile boat on the follow command. So just essentially right clicking on your destroyer. That way it will follow it round. And you don't have to micro them individually. Now then, the destroyer itself does outrange commanders as well. So if you find yourself in a point where you've got a commander that's out here reclaiming wreckage and dealing damage, you can actually kite the commander as well and take that out. Because a lot of the times the commander will walk out here because it is a very strong play. And if given the opportunity, will degun, not degun, sorry, control D on the enemy army. Now again, as I said, I really don't like this composition from the enemy. I think that the only reason ARM can actually even hold anything in this situation is because of the Corsair destroyers. I believe they are quite strong. They are very strong against subs. Again, as I said, keep a skater next to the destroyer and it will be able to outrange the subs, but the sonar itself on its own is not good enough. Now as you can see here, the comm has immediately built wind and energy converters on this island here. Again, I would say keep your eco on the land if possible. As you can see, the transport has immediately brought the constructor down. I would like to see it pick one of the construction turrets up and place it there, or even build another one, just to get these metal extractors out a little bit faster. As you can see, the yellow player has got an edge on this, with 3 already being built. But at the same time, unfortunately, I believe the yellow player is going to lose the sea, because you just generally have more metal income, better units, and a better position. From here, he is going to go into submarine production, and that's simply because he's seen quite a few assault frigates come out from the enemy. Now, of course, frigates can't attack the subs. The subs will, in fact, counter these, but I would prefer him just to make more frigates and just overwhelm his opponent. If we select his military units, you can see here he's got 6,600 metal worth of units. Now if you select this, he's got 5,000, which is still respectable considering the fact that he's on such a metal deficit. As you can see, he is resurrecting the assault frigates from the enemy. So that's another thing that you do need to take into account. When you do take a fight in this area, the yellow player is going to have a much better time getting the reclaim than you. And that is a very, very important part of the naval warfare. So if you commit and you lose a fight, chances are you are going to lose the ocean, simply because of the reclaim that can be pumped back into the lab. I love this pickup here. So the submarines have just picked off the skater that was following the Corsairs round, and he's actually just going to jump on the army now. Now this is something he probably could have done a little bit earlier, but it's always best to be cautious. As you can see here, he's started setting up radars. This is simply to look for run-bys. So it's a 12-minute mark, so there is a potential for marauders to come through here. Having early warning of this is fantastic. It's also set up a few little torpedoes to protect against that. Now back to the main fight. As you can see, it was quite a big engagement and he did win it, and he's immediately going to start protecting the reclaim. This is not so much of a big thing early on, but when it comes to, once you've got quite a few units and you do take a big fight, you do need to protect this reclaim quite a bit. As you can see here, he's scrapped the subs and he's immediately gone back into the Riptide Oppressor build. Again, with a herring to go with those destroyers. And it's just to help with the air and, of course, give him that sonar range. The comm is still going to continue building up over here. As you can see, the wind turbines are spaced out, so if, let's say, a bombing run comes along, they're going to take out very little wind compared to if they were in one big clump. As you can see, he's taken another engagement here, and essentially at this point, the yellow player is just bleeding out. He does have the defender's advantage, so the units are coming out from this shipyard, which is much closer, so his reinforcements do get to the front line much quicker, but at the same time, he's just losing ground and losing reclaim. It looks to me like he's taken out the res sub. Oh no, the res sub is there. If he was to move these res subs up and collect all of this metal, he would be in a much better position. I don't like them being microed down here, but at the same time, there isn't really a whole lot you can do from this spot. Ephemera agrees with me. As you can see, he's reclaimed his naval lab, and he, I believe, is going to go into T2 here. Now, there are a few different options that you can do once you've actually won the sea. So if it's, say, before 10 minutes, if you win the sea relatively early, what I would suggest is going into an amphibious lab and actually producing salamanders. Now, I think they've recently been nerfed in the energy cost, but if you was to produce, say, 10 salamanders, 5 of which you could send down here, 5 of which could come through here, it can cause a serious amount of damage, and if not damage, then it can cause chaos. So that just comes back to being a reactionary player. So if you're on the reaction side of things rather than the proaction side of things, it's going to take a lot more time and energy to prevent something. So when it comes to the salamanders coming through here, you can literally just shift, click, shift, click, shift, click, and then leave them be. Whereas the opponent is going to have to bring units, they're going to have to make units, they have to bring their comm over, other players are going to have to react to it. It's just going to cause a lot of stress. Now, once you go up to the T2, I would suggest building at least 3, maybe 4 of the naval engineers, and that's simply because they do have a lot of build power. If I select them here, you can see build power is 200, which is quite a lot for the cost. The actual advanced construction ship is immediately going to go around and upgrade all of the mexes first. That's going to be the priority. Now, as you can see here, he's going to go straight into a Black Hydra. And that's simply because he has so much metal. The fight over here was quite a large one. There were quite a lot of ships that went down, so he had a lot of reclaim. But not only that, but it is quite a bit later on into the game at 16 minutes, so he's got all of his metal extractors upgraded. All by a 1, sorry. Now, one thing I will say is, a lot of times, if, say, your opponent has maybe been losing on the water for quite a while, you can go into a messenger, which is a cruise missile ship. The reason being is you can come down here, you can hit this, you can hit most of the metal extractors, you can actually hit this player, you can eliminate this player from the game with the cruise missile, and you can actually hit part of this player. That is really strong, but at the same time, a Black Hydra can also do that. Now, as you can see here, he's gone into hovers. So this is essentially going to do a similar job to that missile ship, but for much cheaper price. As you can see, it's 200, and the actual hovercraft platform is 900, whereas a missile ship is 2,000. That's simply just to deny this. Something you can do is you can actually bring just a regular old construction ship down here, and you can actually build a Lightning Claw or Dragon's Breath emplacement up here, and that will eliminate it. But as you can see here, the yellow player has not actually even built it. There's the ticks coming up just to prevent that Dragon's Claw or Flamethrower turret from coming up. Now again, the destroyers have 710 range, which is enough range to reach both of these metal extractors. Commander does need to be very careful here. Naval units do a lot of damage. It just needs to be cautious there. The Black Hydra's almost up. Again, as I said, there are quite a few different things you can do from this position. Once it's later on in the game, you can even put down an experimental gantry and build more orders or Shivas yourself. But I do think at least one flagship, if you can afford to get it out, is going to be really good. Now, if we take a look at the player view, you can see here he doesn't have a massive amount of information. So there has been a scout over, and that's something that you do need to request. Because even though you haven't got a constant scout, just seeing the position of the buildings is enough. I'm going to fast forward this a little bit. As you can see, he's realised that there's nothing been built, so his messengers are going to just sort of sit on the coast. They don't have a massive amount of range, only 700. But the fact that they can shoot straight up means that they can hit this, whereas the destroyers cannot. I'll go back onto the player view and slow it back down. So the Black Hydra's out, and then the next thing you want to do is anti-nuke. Obviously 20 minutes into the game it's pretty late. It's pretty late. If the enemy had a nuke up already, then it is the potential that he could be dead. So one anti-nuke is going to come down here to protect the island, one anti-nuke is going to come here to protect his home base, and the other anti-nuke, I believe, would go with the Black Hydra. Now, one of the reasons you put the anti-nuke with the Black Hydra is it's not only anti-nuke, but it is also a radar and sonar. So if you have anything that comes up, say any amphibious units that are going to try and sneak up on it, you can actually detect them very quickly. As you can see down here with the construction ship, he's immediately built naval construction turrets down here, and he's going to go for some anti-air. One thing I will say is I do prefer the actual anti-air ships themselves. They are incredibly powerful against air. You can get some down here and catch the enemy air wall, then you can do a lot of damage. In fact, if the enemy air does not actually pull their units back fast enough, you can eliminate the entire air wall with just a couple of those anti-air ships. That's how strong they are. From here, I'm actually going to go into the player view once again and just show you that while he has radar range, he does not have radar range of other things that are outside of it. With one single scout, you are still able to target very efficiently, and that's simply through A-clicking the ground. Now, the first thing you want to target is energy converters. As you can see there, even through the fog of war, you can see when they explode. Not only that, but if you've scouted them before, you can see their marker disappear as you zoom out. Things that leave a wreckage will also leave a wreckage, so even that anti-nuke there that he did not scout, once he killed it by accident, it did leave a wreckage. Again, you do have to communicate with your air player to try and get them to scout. If not, seaplanes are certainly something that you can build. Just build a seaplane lab off to the side and build a couple of scouts. Unfortunately, this game is not looking good for Ephemera. He's building drone ships and battleships to try and halt this push down here. But at the same time, he is going to eliminate 3 players with this one Black Hydra flagship. Now again, this is incredibly expensive, so make sure that you have the ability to build one relatively quickly. You don't want to spend 10 minutes trying to pump this thing out and doing absolutely nothing else in the meantime. There are multiple different builds that you can go once you've won the sea. There are a couple other builds that you can go from the start as well, but I think I prefer this one at the moment. Again, as I have mentioned a couple times, you want to be building a land economy. The naval energy converters, I believe, are actually quite good, so if anything, I would say that you should build those. Once this construction ship is finished producing the T2 metal extractors, as you can see, he's gone for a few T2 anti-air turrets, which are, again, like the ships, they are absolutely fantastic. But you can come up into the top corner here and you can build the naval energy converters. So 650 energy for 11 metal per second. I believe that's on par with the land version, but you can build them spread out because you've got so much space to build and you can keep them protected. But on the other hand, the naval fusion is nowhere near as efficient as the land fusion or an Isthmus. So I would still recommend with that. Now then, the Black Hydra, as you can see here, the orange player here has built a plasma deflector. Now these do work against the Black Hydra's rounds, however, they have a health. The actual shield on the outside, a lot of people don't realise, has a health. And if you shoot it enough, it will eventually go down. Now, you need 3 of these in order to stop a Black Hydra from going through. 2 of them will delay it for a little while, but at the same time, you need 3 to stop it completely. Again, as I mentioned, this game is not going well for the rest of Ephemera's team, but at the same time, I believe that he played fantastically. Commander is coming up to the corner. Unfortunately, this game it's essentially over. A lot of his teammates have left. So at this point, I would say just sort of conceding is probably the better option rather than hiding your commander and stalling the game out as much as possible. There you can see there, GG. And the game is going to be over. A couple other points to make. Radar jammer ships, I think, are absolutely fantastic. One of the only ways to counter this flagship coming in, or even the missile ships, is actually snipers or starlights placed along the side. They are absolutely fantastic. Whatever you do not build agitators. Agitators are absolutely terrible. They're static and they can be targeted from outside their range. Anyway, thank you very much for watching.